Hello and welcome to Working with Project Partners. We're going to call this the 10 Steps to Success. But along the way, the advice we're going to give you, or the suggestions are ways that you could protect yourself when you're in a partnership or arrangement between organizations, between the different cultures, the different philosophies, etc. And what I will be doing as we're going through these 10 steps, I will be sort of giving you some feedback of experiences I've come across in my roles over the years. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm saying it's not always the fairy tale ending. Funding bodies in particular like it when organizations get together to develop a combined project. What they're wanting to do is to bring together the strengths of different organizations to fill the gaps that one organization has that the other one can fill. That's going to, and also to enhance the experience for the recipients of what this partnership initiative is going to look like. It's a fantastic idea, and also it sort of shows that there isn't so much competition in town, but acknowledging, or whatever you are, but acknowledging the strengths of all the players to the benefit of the community. But it's a great idea. But what happens when things don't go as planned? Reputations get destroyed. I've seen battle lines being drawn, and we don't want to ever work with these people ever again. Which could have been avoided with some forward planning. Okay, so about me, let's get started. My name is Pat Gross, the community entrepreneur. Now, many, many moons ago, I found myself in a job which was managing a large project on behalf of 10 partners. Yes, 10 partners. And what this meant was when I came on board, something had seriously gone wrong. And there were only 3 of them actually being actively engaged. But it was part of a whole bigger initiative. So even though there was a bit of a fallout happening with respect to the project, the organization still had to work together for the big picture. When I came along, what I learned was, and this is stuck with me ever since, work with those who will work with you and keep everybody else informed. And by doing that, 18 months later, we got 8 of the 10 back on board, which was no mean feat, I have to admit, but simply because the others would sit back and watch how the 3 that would work together were working. And eventually the project became more and more sustainable, and people could start to see the results. And the problems that were there before were people related, and these people were no longer involved. So confidence was returned, and we managed to get the project back on track. It may have gone up even further to the full 10, but by that point, I'd left the country. Okay. I've worked in government supporting partnerships between community organizations. Again, the funder likes to see organizations working together, but also on the ground, we were sort of witnessing what was going wrong, why it wasn't working, and some amazing things. To this day, I remember a partnership between a TAFE and a training provider, and they employed a project worker working for the training provider who was the lead agent, but situated at the TAFE. As far as his project person was concerned, the kudos was with the TAFE and the loyalty was with the TAFE. So there was a bit of a HR problem going on, shall we say. I've worked with community-based client partnerships. I've worked in projects where we've brought 4 or 5 organizations together to work with each other. More recently, 2 or 3 where we've actually brought just 2 together. And along the way, we've developed a partnerships toolkits for community partnerships as well as for business partnership ventures. So that's a little bit of a background as to partnerships from my perspective and why it really interests me. So what happens when partnerships projects go wrong? Well, I've seen some real sort of tragic experiences. I've seen organizations that didn't talk to each other for some time, and that doesn't work well in a community, I can tell you. I've seen, as I said, that example when you've had somebody or communication. So, communication is a big issue, and you find that somebody is being seen to be running off and taking charge, especially if it's a lead agent, without the sort of support, sort of following behind from the other partners, not because they didn't want to support, but because the main agent was not actually communicating with the others. And there was no sort of structured leadership model in place. Usually the one that got funded would take charge, and that didn't work. So there's just a sort of couple of ideas of what could go wrong. I could go into detail. So what I did was I sort of think, well, what are the 10 steps that you could do if you're thinking of going into a partnership arrangement with another organization or group? It could be at multiple levels of type of partnerships, but in this case, let's talk about just coming together for the project first. Okay, so first of all, the thing you need to do is actually work out whether there is a need for a partnership and exactly what the partners are wanting to do in the first place. So you could be in a situation where you're being forced together, which has happened in the funding arena. It may be a project where you're going to get preferential treatment if you are a partnership. So you bring two organizations together or more. Yeah, that's one. There was another one as well, sorry, about kind of, oh yeah, a forced partnership. And that's one where there's been so many applications and too many applications for funding. And the funders said, well, you two, you look like you want to do the same thing. We're not going to fund the pair of you, especially you're in the same area, but why don't you work together? So they're forced together to work with each other. They could be competitors, but in order to get the funding, they either share the funding or they get nothing. And I've seen this, I've experienced this decision-making sort of process where the applicants have been forced to work together or not at all. So it's important that you identify that there is a need for a partnership, or could you do it yourself as an organization by filling in the gaps with the expertise? A partnership is going to bring added value. And it's going to, and you could have a bigger agenda, about working together on other ventures. So, is there a need for a partnership? And, what are the outcomes? And who are the partners that you could work with? And as we go through these slides, I'll give you some pointers and some clues as to what you should be looking for. Okay, the second step here is check out. Now, I did this framework that I came up with after 5 reasons or the fundamental foundations as to why partnerships go wrong. And it was interesting because what we found was commitment. Are you able to commit to your role in the project? Especially if you're not the lead agent. If you're not the one with the money, are you able to commit? Now, I might find this in a later slide because I know that it's sort of top of mind here. But one of the commitments you need to be aware of is it's got to fit, the project has got to fit with your organizational strategy. And also, you've got to be able to commit by having that top level permission from your organization. So if it's the idea doesn't run with your strategic direction, or it doesn't run with that top level approval, at some point somebody's going to turn around and say, no, this isn't for us. And therefore, you're going to find that especially if you're the project lead, that you're going to be left with the project and no partners, simply because there was that. Well, one of the reasons is because there was no real commitment, and we'll address that later. You have to have compatible values. You can give some examples of, an organization that's very risk averse and their values are in that space versus an organization that's very much community customer focused, community focused. So, or entrepreneurial. So you've got things out there. You need to look at your value system and to make sure that they're compatible. You don't have to have the same values, but make sure that they're compatible. There has to be a level of trust. And that's probably one of the main reasons why a forced partnership doesn't go well, is because there's no trust beforehand. But building the level of trust between the organizations. And there are some factors in that trust, like, for instance, communication, like your previous history, like the relationships at the different levels in the organization with each other. So there is, and I've seen trust be an issue when you've got partnership organizations from different sectors or different parts of the community or business or wherever, who are coming together because they don't know the other organization's philosophy or culture. They've got an idea of what they're like, but they don't actually know. So that trust has got to be gained over time. Culture, I've just mentioned that. That was a big one. When we had, TAFE, the seen as the professional organizations with, multi-million dollars, hierarchical structures versus small community organizations who were able and flexible enough to make decisions on the spot. Well, apart from the committee structure, but be able to turn things around pretty quickly. Whereas in a large organization, the culture is not like that. The culture is very linear, very structured, and it could take a long time for change to happen. So culture came through as being one of the major barriers to success of a community partnership. So have a look at that one. Values and partnership in particular, commitment, trust, and philosophy. Okay, number 3, when you're going to put together a partnership project, even if you've got somebody on the ground who could just put, write all the framework, etc., a good secret is to involve the partners in the design of the project plan, because then there is some commitment and some ownership by the project partners, not just the one organization. So it's important to involve the partners in the decision making, but going back even further into the project design. Number 4, as I've mentioned earlier, just make sure the project aligns with your strategic goals and your priorities. And again, I've seen this when somebody has been left holding the baby, so to speak, when project partners have changed direction, especially if they don't feel as committed or as connected to the project as you do. You may be the project lead, but they could turn around and go, well, this isn't core business, or get told. And so I've seen these projects put together by middle level in an organization where they've not really gone through the full, say, permission structure or the full audit to make sure that they do align to the project does align to their goals and priorities. Because at that point, the top level can just turn around and go, just flip the rug from under them and go, we're not here, we're not doing this, this is not for us, this is not our core business. So yeah, partnership projects are a good idea, but make sure they align to your core purpose. Okay, number 5, agree the terms of reference. Now, in a manual we have the project management in a box. We actually have templates around this because in your overall partnership planning structure, you should have at the very top a governance committee, which is the interface between you and your the partnership, the organization that's got the responsibility for the funding and the funding body. Because at the end of the day, it is still a contract between the funder and one agency. So what you will also have maybe is a control group, a steering group, at the top level, at the level, I won't say the very top level, because at this level you may include the representatives of the project partners. And they're sort of like the project governance. And they're like the project control. So they'll be monitoring, they'll be monitoring how well it's going to contract, or sort of what you said you were going to do and when, how the project budget is, and any of those the project discussion, what the project's about, how you can make it go better, the the key people, all that sort of top level governance. But there's a terms of reference so that people understand what their role is in this group, because there is a boundary, there is a level at which they don't go, because that, as I said, is the top level governance. You're not here to influence that top level funding agreement. That is between the organization that's got the funding and the funder. So a steering group will also, a terms of reference for a steering group will also talk about the communication plan, who communicates with who, the times, regular meetings, when those meetings were, whether or not you will can bring in a deputy if you're not attending those meetings, etc. So there is actually a clear plan of how that top level group will be for the project. And then below that, there are like the reference groups. Now, the reference groups are not decision makers. The reference groups are maybe if you're working in a community, you want a group out in the community to come in to have some engagement with the project and have some ideas and be able to provide some feedback that could enhance the project one way or the other, but they're not decision makers. Now, too often, people get confused about that and think that they are decision makers in the project. So I would say, there is a template again for a reference group to make sure that the reference group people actually know what their roles and responses are. Above all of that, there is an MOU. Now, I'm not sure, I'm not a legal expert, but from my days of when we were said an MOU gives you some peace of mind, but it is not a legal contract as such. But it does actually ensure that the top level in an organization, all organization partners are on the same page, and there is that level of commitment. So an MOU will be about what each organization is going to be doing, which reflects back to the plan, and they will have decided who's got what roles and responsibilities, what assets, what resources, what skills they're bringing to the project. All of this is covered in an MOU. What happens if there's a dispute, how long the MOU is for. We've got an actual template on what the kind of information that you could put into an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding document. So make sure if you're working in partnership with people, other organizations, that there is some kind of MOU structure in place. For heaven's sake, do not go down the path of, we know each other, we've worked together in the past, we'll just do this. I've seen some really close relationships between organizations explode and it's usually personalities or, as I said, miscommunication, and there's been nothing holding them together, and that's when the big problems happen. The blame, the recrimination, the how not in it being able to fulfill the contract with the funder, etc. Lots of things could go wrong. Have an MOU in place, and as I said, we've actually got a template for ideas that you could put in there. Number 7, work to your strengths and learn from each other. So this is the whole point of a partnership, is looking at what each organization brings to the table. Work to your strengths, and there are going to be some gaps. So you can just buy in that expertise, and that will be included in your project plan. So, and it could be another partner or a person. It could be anything, but just work to your strength, and it's a great opportunity to learn about the other organization, but B, learn from some of the skills and knowledge of that other organization or organizations or groups. So, work to your strengths and learn from each other. Number 8, watch out for the secret agendas. This is going back to trust, values, commitment, philosophy, etc. You're going to find that there are secret agendas. Now, again, in our pre-planning, we try to get those agendas on the table. And some of them may not be secret agendas as such. I mean, why would this organization work with this organization? What is it they're trying? It might be just altruistic, but there's also sort of like secondary things going on there. You just need to find out if there is a secret agenda. Giving you an example right at the beginning of this presentation about the project worker employed by one organization working on the premises of another. She did have an agenda, and that was simply that she wanted a job in the TAFE. So that was a personal agenda. And I myself have come across that with people with personal agendas, not just the organization's agenda. So have a look to see if there is any secret agenda. And sometimes it's worthwhile knowing what those agendas are up front, because you can deal with them. And sometimes those secret agendas really are not that bad at all. But you just need to know they exist, because if not, then the trust falls over. Number 9 is evaluate your performance, how well you've worked together as partners. Just have a look at that, what you've learned from each other, because that is, it's a great learning journey, and it opens up opportunities for further collaboration. And I'm working in the space now where we're taking collaboration and taking it to the next level, calling it co-creation. So you may have had some experiences with working with these partners on projects getting bigger and bigger until you're going to a full-blown collaboration, but you may actually think, hey, we've got something here. You don't have to be best friends with each other. You just need to be professional with each other in order to think, well, we could actually build this even further and co-create something brand new. So that's an exciting step moving forward, which is taken from what's happening in the business space. We could put that into the community space. And then number 10 is, look, have a partnership, have a project, a venture, but take the opportunity to celebrate the success. Let the whole world know. Let the whole organization know from top to bottom, because that's a great news to have. One of the things I didn't mention earlier in the slides, especially in that communication, one of the things that can go wrong is that, and I've seen this, you might have, and this could be the MOU and the terms of reference and everything, you might have a great relationship and great intent at the top of the organization, but if you don't tell the middle level could put up barriers. Likewise, if you organize a project, a program or initiative at the middle level, and you don't have the support of the top level, then the top level could pull the wool and pull the rug, and that's it, everything falls down. So any partnership relationship between organizations must have really a whole of organization support or communication structure so everybody knows what's going on, so that you don't end up with those battle lines drawn. So that's the negative side, but the positive side is celebrate your success. Now, I say this is an information session, so it's quick and easy. I mentioned we do have project slides, management in partnership. We actually have a partnerships manual as well. So we've got 2 project management in a box and the partnerships toolbox, where we do have and we can present packages that we available for people to use. And if you need to know more about these, just contact me for an exploratory call on bit.ly/TCE booking. And yeah, I hope I enjoyed that quick 10 steps or 10 things for for your partnerships. And next time, with these information sessions are a mix. Next time we're going to be talking about evaluation basics. And what we're doing here is when you see a question in an application about evaluation or measuring the outcomes, we're going to give you some keywords and terminology that you can at least put on paper to start the evaluation journey and make it look as if you know what you're talking about. Okay, thank you.